दिलों में तुम अपनी बेताबियां लेके चल रहे हो तो जिंदा हो। नजर में ख्वाबों की बिजलियां लेके चल रहे हो तो जिंदा हो। हवा के झोंकों के जैसे आजाद रहना सीखो, तुम एक दरिया के जैसे लहरों में बहना सीखो। हर एक लम्हे से तुम मिलो, खोले अपनी बाहें, हर एक पल एक नया समा देखिए। जो अपनी आंखों में हैरानियां लेके चल रहे हो तो जिंदा हो। दिलों में तुम अपनी बेताबियां लेके चल रहे हो तो जिंदा हो।
गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड इवनिंग, गुड आफ्टरनून to wherever you are in the world. आपको मेरा प्यार भरा नमस्कार. First of all, I would like to start by saying thank you to each and every one of you for amazing response that this show is getting, and special thank you to my LinkedIn family for great support that you're giving to this show. I'm so happy that the conversations that we have been having till now in the last two episodes have actually added a lot of value to you. And there are so many people out there who are engaging with me and giving me ideas of how we can do things better and how we can add more value. Now, that support is amazing. So, thank you so much for that. Now, continuing our journey of bringing in those leadership insights, those small little things that actually make an impact in leadership, make an impact on people, make an impact on business. Today, we are in the third episode of Leadership Insights with Prashant. The guest that I have on the show today is someone very different. What he brings to table is something very different. Do we still talk about leadership? Does he still bring about lessons that are going to help us become better as leaders and share his insights and perspectives? Yes. But the twist is different. He's going to bring it with a mythological twist to it. I've always been very intrigued with the lessons that our old scriptures and Puranas and so many stories that we've heard from people bring forward to our lives. But this perspective of putting those lessons into corporate leadership, in helping people grow, in helping organizations grow, is something very unique. I've been following him for a while on LinkedIn, and his posts have definitely added a lot of value to me personally. Is why I reached out to him and requested him, can you please come on this platform and add this value and share this knowledge with so many people out there across the world where there is a different perspective, a thought shift that could result because of this conversation. And he has agreed to be here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, today we have with us a senior leader, a senior corporate leader with more than 18 years of experience, and he's also a corporate mythologist, is where he brings in the references from Vedic scriptures into our world and your life today. So, without any further delay, let's welcome with us Mr. Vikram Pandit. Hi, Vikram. A very good morning to you.
Very good morning, Prashant. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Fantastic. Looking forward to it. Eagerly looking forward.
Super. That's great. So, Vikram, the context that we have for this show is that we talk about leadership and we try to find out different perspectives and insights from leaders from different walks of life to understand what is their meaning of leadership. Because as individuals, we all have given leadership our own meaning, something that is unique, something that is my definition. कि प्रशांत का definition leadership का ये है. So that is what I relate to as an individual. So as an individual, as Vikram Pandit, what is your meaning of leadership?
It's a broad topic. I mean, we all know that, and you can't kind of compartmentalize leadership per se. And as I said, as you rightly pointed out, every individual will have its his and her own definition of on leadership. For me, I think what's very important aspect of leadership is actually leading by example. Being responsible, being accountable. And for me, that's something that stands out when I see somebody as a leader. For me, that's something which is very, very important. As one of our scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita explains, yad yad achariti shreshthas tad tad eva taro janaha. It means that the general populace always follow the leaders. Shrestha is how the leaders are defined in Bhagavad Gita. Yad yad achariti shrestha. So whatever the leader does, people will follow him. Now, that becomes very important, which means if the leader is leading by examples, he's full of integrity, he's responsible, people eventually down below will become with full of integrity and responsible. So somebody who leads by example is a standout quality for me when it comes to leadership.
Wow, wonderfully said, Vikram. So, if I'm getting it right, what you're saying is, there is a term that we hear very commonly which says, do what you preach. So, if there are things that you're expecting from your people, if there are certain behaviors or actions that you're expecting from your team or people around in your life as well, the best way to do that is not to tell them to do that. The best way as a leader to do that is to actually project that. Be that person, show those actions and behaviors in you, is when it becomes more real and it becomes easy for the people who are aligned with those actions and behaviors to follow you.
Exactly.
Is that
Exactly.
what you're trying to say?
Exactly. And also we all know, everybody has read books on leaderships and so many things, but it's not the books that remain with us, those
Hmm.
definitions. It's the person when you see him in action. That's what remains with you. That's how you
Yeah.
start defining the idea for yourself. So that's why it is individual. Otherwise you can read the same book, I can read the same book, and still our concepts would be different, because you have seen different leaders in action, I have seen different leaders in action. For me, it has been my father. I had a tremendous impact on myself in terms of how I saw him. He didn't have a great position. That's why leaders don't have, they don't wait for positions. You can be leader right at a very bottom level. You can behave like a leader. You can inspire people. Like a manager, he inspires people to do work in his presence. Leaders can do it in their absence. That's the difference. So
Hmm.
when you see those leaders doing those things, they walk their talk. I think that's how you start creating definition of leadership within your life. And like for example, as I said, my father, I saw him in action every day of my life. Being responsible, being accountable. Working the hardest in our family. That's how you see them, and you would love to kind of gradually imbibe those qualities like that.
And that brings to my mind a very interesting thought. When you speak about your father, uh, it also tells us that as parents, when we think about leadership, we only think about leadership from a work perspective. But even in life, as parents, as elder brother, elder sister, as somebody who is elder, uh, the youngsters are looking up to you, and they will probably not reciprocate to your words, but they will reciprocate to your actions, or more than reciprocate, probably they will replicate your actions to what you're doing or what you're saying, right? I've
Absolutely.
seen people who telling their children, and I have done it, that I'm watching TV and I'm doing something and I'm telling them, it's 10 p.m., it's time to go to sleep. Why are you watching TV? And they might not say anything at that age, but in their mind, they're probably like, पापा आप तो देख रहे हो टीवी यार, 10-11 बज गए, मेरे सोने का टाइम क्यों है, आपका क्यों? Because there is no context setting to it. So if you actually make that as a discipline, with the TV turns off at 10 o'clock and you get up and you also go to bed and probably pick up a book and read while you're going to sleep, they will also follow that, because they'll feel that's the normal way of being, right? They will not know anything else. So
Yeah.
that's such a
Parenting,
beautiful thing
parenting is a very good example.
brought
Parenting
up.
is a good example of leadership. It's one of the toughest leaders. That's why sometimes some ladies, for example, I when I'm kind of coaching some of my some of the uh, industry colleagues or professionals, even their housewife, I said she's a leader.
Hmm.
She doesn't need to have go out and create position. That's where it's when you start defining things, that's where it becomes little difficult. The housewife might think, "Okay, you know what, look at that lady, she's working and she's a leader." No, you are also a leader. Your job is equally important. You don't even have a vacation. You don't have,
Hmm.
right? You
Hmm.
work 365 days, 24 by 7. And that's how you start feeling. That's how you can, maybe a husband could behave like a leader for her by inspiring her in her work. No, equally important. You're actually equally important, because you don't have no vacation. You work 24 by 7, 365 days a year. I have 2 days
Hmm.
off every week, plus some, vacation time as well. So
True.
it's a matter of perspective. Once you start defining it, kind of boxing it, that's where
Hmm.
it has a problem.
Very, very well said. And those definitions make it rigid. So what I'm understanding from what you're saying is that there need to be boundaries, but it still needs to be fluid. It can't be rigid कि ये है तो यही है और ऐसे ही है और ऐसे ही करना है और ऐसे ही होता है, right? Certain
True.
boundaries to keep a certain amount of discipline in track because that is required. A certain amount of momentum is required, and that is what comes in with boundaries. But what you are essentially saying is that, everybody at every role that they are playing are leader in their own right, and it's just that they need to identify that what are they leading and what value are they bringing to this entire puzzle. Like your example of an housewife, it's important for her to also realize that I'm a very important part of this entire puzzle. ये पजल तभी आगे बढ़ रही है, ये गाड़ी तभी चल रही है जब मैं अपना काम ठीक से कर रही हूँ, एंड आई एम प्लेइंग अ वेरी की रोल, आई एम लाइक द एक्सल, आई एम नॉट इवन द स्पोक कि उसके बिना गाड़ी तब भी किसी तरह चल जाएगी, राइट? And another essential point that you mentioned is that it's important for the husband or the life partner also to have this awareness and make her realize this, that boss, you are actually leading this. I have a separate front that I am leading. Like in business, we have various functions. आप भी एक कुछ फंक्शन लीड कर रहे हो तभी ये घर बिजनेस चल रहा है, नहीं तो ये ऐसे नहीं चलेगा. So beautiful points, Vikram, that you brought forward. That we are all leaders in our own right. We need to be aware of where do we stand and what are we bringing to the table. So thank you so much
True.
for that very interesting perspective.
Thank you.
Now, moving on, and talking about the title that we spoke about earlier, and I told to the audience as well that he's a corporate mythologist as well. Now, what is this? What is corporate mythology? And I would also be interested to know that how did you get into this? How did you get interested in this journey? Because what you're doing on LinkedIn, the value that you're adding is amazing. So, how did all this happen?
Well, it started when I was like 6, 7 years old. My grandparents came to stay with us. We just built a new house in Kashmir, and uh, at night, before I would go to sleep, my grandfather would tell me stories. Actually, he was a fabulous storyteller. I think I today I realize what I was getting. In my he was filling my subconscious mind like through these and timeless stories every night, every single night. And I can kind of got interested, and I realized that there's so much of value these things have to offer. I mean, I felt like I am responsible because I am representing such a rich culture and heritage. Every Indian, for that matter, actually. Uh, so it's then I realized there's so much of knowledge. Be it Ramayana, the Bhagavad Purana, Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Vedas, Upanishads, and so many things. And and they were very practical. Normally we have this idea of spirituality, of leaving everything, and look at the fact the Bhagavad Gita was spoken on battlefield. We
Hmm.
all are fighting our battles, smaller or bigger. We are all doing that in our life. And that's where I realized that there's a lot of it's something like ancestral property, like your
Hmm.
grandfather. If you're unaware that there's a treasure that your grandfather left for you, it's so stupid. You're living life like and working hard and hard and hard, and somebody comes, my dear friend, your grandfather actually left a
Yeah.
big treasure for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then you realize that actually our ancestors have left quite a massive knowledge amount of treasure for
Hmm.
us. And it's our duty not to just imbibe it, but also kind of try to share it. I may not be, of course, I don't claim myself to be a perfect follower, for sure. I'm learning myself. But at the same time, I thought, maybe I need to kind of try it out. And that's where I started kind of, reading a little bit here and there. And of course, later on, I think in roughly around 2002, somewhere around that time, I think I met my mentor, spiritual mentor, His Holiness Radhanath Swami. He's a monk from Chicago, America, and of course he travels across the world, and giving this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, and that's somewhere I kind of could connect in a more practical way. and
Hmm.
uh, and what happened in COVID, as I said, it is a big challenge, not to the whole mankind. Actually, one of the biggest challenges we've ever seen in the 20th century. Uh, so, so my brother actually he said, "This is the right time for you. because you've been traveling and you have so much of work. So maybe this is the time, this may be the break you needed actually. And why don't you start sharing this with people on the social media? I mean, I was not so, kind of, very active in social media, and that's where the LinkedIn began. And I started my journey last year, and I would say I'm just amazed actually. I didn't know that so many people are interested to hear and read uh, about these stuff like Vedic stories and things like that.
Hmm.
And that's how it started. So I've been kind of course, regularly posting, writing. Uh, Now, of course, I don't like the term mythology myself, but because I understand, I know for sure, uh, these are not just myths. These are not based on myths. These are pure facts,
Hmm.
scientifically proven the existence of these stories. The kings, Krishna, Rama. You could see them. Yeah, scientifically proven. So but yes, but the term, because that was kind of used within social media, it
Hmm.
went with the flow. So that's how the kind of corporate mythology has kind of evolved gradually since one and a half year. And I'm just very thankful. Actually, I would maybe take this opportunity to thank all the wonderful LinkedIn family members. Uh, I mean, I really admire them for their openness. Uh, Even people from foreign culture have started, are accepting it. Looking out for lessons in this without being judgmental, and that's
Hmm.
something really that was my biggest takeaway. Biggest learning for myself also during this journey while sharing the corporate mythology with the corporate world.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. And you mentioned something, so I would like to bring forward. So
Oh, I finished it in single stretch. I mean, one
wow, wow,
sitting.
wow.
Yes, this book.
I would
This
also
was,
highly recommend anyone who's watching this, give it a shot. This will add some value into your life for sure.
and again, I would like to thank my brother. He gifted me this book, and one shot. I was going to Calcutta from Bombay, and single sitting. I think right at the airport and on the plane. I think the plane that day also got delayed for a couple of hours, and I had a lot of time. So by the time I was Calcutta, almost reaching to my place, I had done. I was done
Wow.
finishing. It's awesome, awesome book. Highly recommended for sure.
Yes, yes, for
Thank
sure.
you, thank you, thank you, Prashant.
Great. So now, when we're talking about corporate mythology, I understand, as you mentioned earlier as well, that it's a vast subject. It's very subjective and it's very vast. So there is so much that we can speak about and bring forward. But the topic that I would like to focus on today, or the element of leadership that I would like to focus on today to get maximum value for our audience, is the area of conflicts. When it comes to leadership, it's a role that comes with a lot of responsibilities, a lot of accountability with it. So conflicts play a very vital role, be it your inner conflicts as a person, as who you are and what you're going through, and the external conflicts that happen in the environment that you're in. So with a reference to corporate mythology, with reference to our treasure that has been left for us to actually fall back on from the past, can you share some stories, some things that have happened in the past that can bring forward this element of conflicts and help us understand as leaders how do we better deal with these internal and external conflicts?
Very powerful question, Prashant. I must say, where leadership is really challenged, especially in the modern day, is when there's a conflict, and these conflicts have many features, different colors. They really challenge you uh, in terms of uh, how you behave, especially when you're in the corporate sector where it's like cutthroat competition and politics and things like that. uh, well, the first example that comes to my mind is the conflict. For example, Arjun. You know, he was in deep turmoil. It's a conflict. They were fighting for so long for this particular the kingdom of their own. They were just seeking it back. Even that wasn't given. They said, okay, let's please, can you give us 5 villages, because we are administrators. We are kshatriyas. The kshatriya class in the Vedic times were administrators. They said, we need something to rule, because we can't be doing other stuff.
Hmm.
uh, so the evil, the Duryodhana, he said, forget about 5 villages, forget about your kingdom. I'm not going to give you land on which you can keep at the tip of a needle. So they tried. Krishna came. Sometimes people easily blame Krishna that because of him there was Mahabharata, so many people were killed. But people forget that before that he actually went to the Duryodhana saying that, what, let's have peace. Nobody wants war. uh, but he didn't give it. So while the Pandavas were struggling throughout their life to get the kingdom, now was the time for Arjun to actually execute the plan, whether he liked it or not. But then all of a sudden, Jesus gives it up because there was a conflict. His material attachment, his attachment to kinsmen, his relatives, his teachers, I mean, it started kind of coming out. And that's where Krishna actually, that's the biggest conflict. We all have these conflicts in our life, you know. So Arjuna is a very prime example. And that's where Krishna, only by knowledge, and he says that, that I am giving you this knowledge in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He says, because you're an envious, you're my friend. I'm revealing this knowledge to you. And what he did by that knowledge, he amplified his inner voice. He connected with him to a much larger good, because he was getting kind of thinking about me, my relatives, my this thing, I, me, mine. That's all he wanted. That's all he was talking about. And then Krishna said, no, you can't be just so self-centric. Leader can't be self-centric. His decisions, like even Chanakya says, the great moral teacher of roughly around 300 BC, he came, and he says the same thing. The real leader, for him, his own happiness is actually he's scared of his own desires and own happiness, because he looks at the happiness of his people. The
Hmm.
moment he does that, that's where he becomes a real leader. And Arjuna was trying to kind of figuring out, no, I don't like this, I don't want to do this, I want to do
Hmm.
this. No, I was capital, it was in caps.
Hmm.
I sometimes wonder in English it should be actually small, when you write. you know so so Krishna, kind of as a mentor, as a coach, like you are into coaching, what you do, you amplify that inner voice of theirs,
Hmm.
because it's subdued, because the external desires are actually kind of taking a toll. Name, fame, glory, this whole marketing things, you see the number of likes, the number of comments. So it takes precedence. And that's where the trouble is. So Krishna helped Arjuna to amplify his inner voice, see the bigger picture, and then decide. And that's
Hmm.
where he decided, okay, no, to establish dharma, to establish good governance, war is required. You know, it's sometimes required. People may say, oh, no, peace. Yeah, peace needs to be given a chance if it's not there. But how do you protect the good citizens otherwise?
Hmm.
If my military says, no war, I'll come back, the border is empty,
Hmm.
will I be safe?
Hmm.
Today, you and me are talking because we feel safe at home, because
Hmm.
somebody has raised a weapon.
Very true. Very true.
That's his
Yeah.
job, to discipline, right? To protect. That's what his administration is all about. That's what the leadership is all about, is to protect, is to have that circle of safety in the organization. Is not able
Hmm.
to provide that. That's where
Hmm.
people start looking out, you know, within some time. Because they don't feel safe.
Hmm.
My child doesn't feel safe in the home, he will start looking out. And the moment it becomes 18 plus and he kind of is able to figure it out, he's going to go out.
Hmm.
Right. So, like Simon Sinek in his book, Leaders Eat Last, very beautiful. Like 3M, we all know company 3M. There was this one scientist, uh, pardon me, I think I lost his name. So he was working on an adhesive, very,
Hmm.
so he was mixing things and doing, and his experiment failed terribly. So much so that the adhesive he wanted, actually, it was one of the weakest adhesives he ever made. It was a very weak adhesive. He had failed completely. But he pushed this story into the organization that, you know what? I did such and such thing. I actually failed and I made a very weak adhesive. And one more scientist, one day he was in the church and they were reading Bible, and one of the bookmarks fell. And he found it difficult to always keep this bookmark. And he realized, if I would have something which is very soft adhesive, I would have kind of put it here. And he realized there was this mail, the communication from the other scientist, but failed. He actually took it. And when you see all these colorful offices, 3M notes,
Yeah.
that's where it came from a
Wow.
failure of a scientist.
Hmm.
But because the company had a culture of safety, and
Hmm.
mistakes were allowed.
Hmm.
So the circle of safety was so strong. People very, you know, that's what we do as parents sometimes, right? We don't allow our kids to do mistakes,
Yeah.
and he doesn't feel safe. He doesn't share things
Hmm.
when you don't share. So that's one of the prime things, also, I'm just kind of connecting the dots here. What I
Hmm.
said before is when you amplify the voice and you're able to exercise it is when you have this circle of safety, as Simon
Hmm.
Sinek calls it, and that's a great concept. Uh, so, so as a leader, I think this is something where you can have conflicts,
Hmm.
and as a leader, you need to not only amplify your voice but also help the people in around you to amplify their voices. Give them the environment where they can amplify their inner voices, where they can openly exercise that. And that's
Hmm.
something which is very important.
Hmm. Well said, Vikram. Very, very interesting thing that you bring about of the circle of safety, and we're talking about physical and psychological safety, especially in times of COVID that we have been going through. The term
Yes.
psychological safety has been spoken about a lot. That because your people are not even in your physical domain anymore, where you had created that space where they entered office and they felt safe in that zone. Now they're at their own homes, right? And there is constant worry. And when we talk about from Maslow's hierarchy of needs perspective, we have gone back to the bottom where safety and security has become a challenge. Forget about actualization and transcendence. People are saying that, first let me get safety and security on track. Is my job safe? Will I be able to pay my EMI? Will I be able to get my food on table? How long is it? Because we are in a situation where we don't even know कि ये 6 महीने की बात है, 18 महीने की बात है, 10 साल की बात है. Nobody knows how long this is going to go. And what you said makes so much sense, that circle of safety, that psychological safety has to be such that it is beyond the boundaries of office walls. Your people under your leadership, or probably under is not the right word, working with you in your leadership, should feel psychologically safe, irrespective of what physical space they are in, is when they will be able to give their best, and also knowing that it might result in failure, and it's all right because I put in the best effort possible with the best of the knowledge that I had, and I'm allowed to do that,
True.
right? So that is a beautiful lesson that you brought forward, right? That there will be conflicts which will happen. You have different kind of team members in your team with different agendas personally that they have in life, but if you can get them together towards a common goal, it will serve the purpose. So thank you for bringing that out, Vikram. Anything
Thank you.
else, any other inner or external conflict
Yeah,
that you think of?
there's also like reminds me of the episode of actually Ramayana and Mahabharata both, that where Ram was about to be coronated as the king. The whole Ayodhya is celebrating, and they know the right person, you know, uh, is actually becoming the king because everybody loved him. You know,
Hmm.
not just out of fear, but out of love. They wanted him to be the king. Even the stepmothers, they wanted him to be the king. The stepbrothers, they were jubilant more than Ram. They were happy, saying,
Hmm.
"Oh, Ram is going to be the king. Now Ayodhya will flourish even much more." Right? But what happened? Kaikei, the stepmother, we all know that, had a maid servant. Her name was Mantra. That also shows the power of association. Association means when you start giving in,
Mm,
not just because you're walking with somebody, associating with him. It's when you start giving in. So
mm,
she started to listen, and Mantra told her, what are you doing? And actually, she, her, again, because her inner voice wasn't amplified, there was this conflict. Because Ram, she knew, loved her much more than Kaushalya, his own mother. There was no
mm,
doubt in her mind. But then this is how you will always have such people who will test you, who will test your inner voice. Is it really amplified, right? So they're going to test you. So she became so selfish that it said that even Dashrath, he was crying. Her husband, he said, I will die. He said, I don't care. When this I becomes very big,
mm,
that's where the whole difficulty is. So leader actually is selfless. He's not self-centered. He's people-centric.
mm,
For him, it's one of the biggest conflicts they have. They want to grow. He has his own mindset, and he sometimes climbs on the shoulders of his own people, gets onto that position. That's not the leader.
mm,
That at the best could be said he's a good manager. So the leaders are actually selfless, and that's what Ram actually gives up. Although his father says, "You kill me right now, or do a mutiny and just take away the kingdom. You forcefully take it." But Ram says, "No, I don't want that."
mm,
Most beautiful lesson that comes in Ramayana is when Ram is going to the exile. It's a big lesson. Actually, it's very difficult to follow. He's going to exile, and then the chariot driver who was actually leading him to the forest, his name was Sumantra, was a very confidential minister of Dashrath, Ram's father. And he actually tells him, now you must go back quickly. And he didn't want to leave Ram. He says, no, you must ensure you go back and show your face to Kaikeyi so that she is relieved of her anxiety that Ram is gone.
mm.
The lady who was responsible for his exile, he also took care of people who were his detractors, who were his kind of, so the leader also has a team like that. You have
Yeah,
people who are good to you, there are people who are not good to you.
yeah,
But that's how
yeah.
Ram exemplified what a leader has to do. Leader takes care, like a parent. There's a boy, two sons or three sons, whatever, you know. So one is nice and one is little naughty. So doesn't the father take care of the naughty?
Mm,
He takes equal care, but he knows he's little naughty. He might, discipline him a bit more, but in terms of giving him love and care, he will
mm.
have vision. That's the lead.
Wow, wow, wow. So that's very deep, as you said that to practice it is what is important, but before practicing it comes the stage of acceptance. Now that there is awareness that you have gotten by hearing this, there is a stage of acceptance where you're like, yes, this is what leadership is. So as a leader, if I accept first that leadership is selfless, as a leader I'm here to serve, as a leader I'm here to provide equal opportunities for people and be there for them irrespective of what kind of people they are, and bring out their best and put in my effort forward. This brings me to what you said earlier, that we try for peace first. This is my attempt to bring in peace, which means I'm not even thinking about you going under a performance improvement plan or going to leave this organization. I'm not even going on those lines. My first attempt is to have a conversation with you peacefully, to make you understand that I'm there for you as a leader, even if you're not doing well. Let me give you some feedback and talk about things that are not working well for you, that are not in alignment with the organizational needs. And I'll try to bring you on track. But if you don't, then the peace has failed. My attempt to peace has failed. Then I have no option but war. And when we talk about war here in the mind, it's a conflict which will ultimately
Separation.
lead to separation, right?
Yeah, but I mean, how many times leaders these days do ask this question? I was talking to one of the psychologists in US once, and he gave me a very beautiful question. Sometimes questions can be really powerful, and they get the best answers actually, you know.
Mm,
And he said, how many times does a leader ask his struggling subordinate, is there anything I can do as a leader to support you, to overcome your struggles? Is there anything I can do to make this relationship even more productive? Like that. Pinpointing anybody can do. That's not the job of a leader. If you say somebody you're blind, I mean, he's a blind man, for example, and you tell him, my dear sir, you're blind. No, he knows that, isn't it? What good are you doing?
doing.
He knows he's blind. So rather than saying that, he say anything I can do to kind of improve, you know. And that's $1 million question we all have to ask. I'm just actually not telling to anybody or any even my LinkedIn friends. I'm telling it to myself.
Mm,
Maybe I need to connect with my children and ask them, is there anything I can do? Right? I need to ask my wife rather than just blaming people. And I think when you ask this question, you're actually shifting from being somebody who blames to somebody who actually has started to take accountability, who has started to become responsible. One question I've seen, one question can improve your relationship like anything. You go and ask your wife today, my dear wife, is there anything I can do to help you to improve this relationship? Mind blowing. You will get mind blowing response. And if you are with open mind, it's magic.
that's very powerful, Vikram, and I'm reflecting on it. Uh, there are a lot of times we get into an assumption mode that I know what he or she wants and I'm doing the best for him or her. Now, instead of assuming and just being in your circle of reality where you think that is right or that is what he or she wants, it becomes so easy by just going to that person and saying that, what can I do for you? How can I help you? How can I support you? And like similar questions, like how you said, brings in the reality from that person rather than an assumed reality that you have formed and then get disappointed from
Yeah, yeah,
it.
right.
And
Absolutely.
as a leader, it's such a powerful question if I can actually reach out to my people and say that, I'm not here to just tell you what you did wrong. And even if you did, I have an equal role to play in it as a leader. So before I talk to you about what you can get better at, can you please help me understand what can I do better as a leader? Now,
Yes.
now there is that personal ego. There is, you'll have to crush all that and put it aside, where it's a human to human conversation saying that, Vikram, what can I do better? How can I serve you better? How can I support you better? Now, very well said, Vikram. I'm sure audience are listening to this, and if you pick up one thing from this entire conversation, this is key. That leadership is about serving people. It's not about being selfish, selfless, and reach out to your people as humans, human to human conversation, and talk to them and ask them, how can I support you? What can I do for you? How can I add value to you? And see what comes up. See what comes up. And will everyone respond? Maybe, may not be. But as a leader, you have played your part and you are available for them. Right, Vikram?
Perfect.
Super, very well said. I can also think of the conversation that we had earlier where you mentioned that story of Krishna lifting the wheel, where we were talking about bending of rules and that
Rules.
conflict that comes into
That's a
mind. Can you
conflict.
bring that forward? That's very powerful. Can you please talk about that?
People expect leaders, or leaders also expect, they think that's how they have to behave under certain rules and regulations of the organization, which is important. They're there to maintain discipline, maintain hygiene in terms of how we work. Absolutely, absolutely. But leader not only makes those rules and follows them, but a real leader actually knows when to bend those rules, when to break them also, right? So it's extremely important. And in Mahabharata, The how the war of Mahabharata was fought is very interesting, unlike what we have today. Uh, the enemies would come on the battlefield. They would fight the war till sunset. But even after sunset, you could actually walk into the enemy camp, and they won't hurt you. You know, it was so you can understand what kind of civilized people were there. They would even touch an enemy because they know the rules. You come on the battlefield, we're going to fight. Just like sometimes we say we are in the ring. Outside the ring, we're good friends, like that, right?
Yeah.
So, so Duryodhan one day he started to practically abuse Bhishma. He's practically scolding him. He's saying, "My dear great grandfather, I mean, what are you doing? There's nobody who can stand in front of your arrows. You're so powerful. And I can still see so many days have passed and Pandavas are still living, and it's like piercing my heart." It's like, sometimes you ask the performer, क्या कर रहा है? इतना महीने से एक ऑर्डर नहीं आया. तू मेरा टॉप परफॉर्मर था लास्ट ईयर का. Anyway, so Bhishma actually, because he's a Kshatriya, after all, administrator, it hurts. So Bhishma actually picks up 5 arrows, and he chants mantras in each one of them, and it said in I don't know the right word in English, but abhimantrit kar din. He empowered these arrows, and he told Duryodhan, "Tomorrow I'm going to kill the 5 Pandavas using these 5 arrows." Duryodhana had a sigh of relief. Mission accomplished. But when your mind is like a little tricky, he said, "My dear grandfather, well, better I keep them. In the morning, I'm going to give it to you." Now, Krishna, who knows everything, Aham sarvasva prabho, matta sarva pravartate. Krishna explains in Gita, I know, I'm the knower of everything. Aham bija pratapitaha, I'm the seed-giving father of everyone. I own everything. I know everything. So he comes to know that, the stage is set for tomorrow. And he reminds that evening to Arjun, he says, once upon a time, you had saved Duryodhan from the attack of celestial beings called as Gandharvas, known as Gandharvas and Kinnaras, the high class people from the higher realms. And he said, he had given you a boon. Today is the right time to ask from him. So they go to the camp of Duryodhana, and Duryodhana welcomes them actually and gives them a seat, and he says, "What brings you here?" And Arjuna says, "Well, I would like to have the 5 arrows you have, because you had given me a boon, so today I'm asking." And Duryodhana is shocked. I said, "How in the world do you know about them?" And he actually had to give the arrows. Now, next day morning, when Bhishma is getting ready, is putting his armor, and so he calls for Duryodhana. He says, "My dear Duryodhana, where are my 5 arrows?" And he says, "Oh, I can't tell you what happened in the night." He says, "Arjuna took it. Krishna took it. Krishna has done some trick again." And Bhishma realized, "Oh my God, what happened? What happened? What will happen to my vow? I took a vow to kill them. It's gone." And he takes another vow. He says, "Today I will fight in such a way that I'll break Krishna's vow." Now Krishna is God. He has taken a vow, I will never pick up any weapon in the war of Mahabharata. But then Bhishma that day is fighting so much that Arjuna is almost, dead, you can say. It's almost gone now. He's fighting in such a way. And Krishna was a charioteer of Arjuna, always with Arjuna. And that's where what happened, Krishna feels that now Arjuna is almost gone. He actually jumps from the chariot, picks up a wheel of a broken chariot, and rushes towards Bhishma. He actually breaks the rule. The rule was Krishna will never raise a weapon. But to keep the promise of his devotee, Bhishma, he picks up the chariot. It's one of the most beautiful. You must have seen that picture, very beautiful picture.
Yeah, yeah, with that wheel and yeah.
And there's Bhishma, and Bhishma drops his weapons. He doesn't fight because he wants to see his master in action, because that was his desire. He promised. So, in order to keep Bhishma's second promise, Krishna actually broke his one of the main promises. He will never raise a weapon. So, he was ready to take, you can say, abuses or whatever of people, or complaints of people for eternity to come. He knew that it's going to happen.
Mm,
People will talk about it, and they'll say, "Oh, Krishna, he doesn't keep his promises. Forget it."
mm,
But he doesn't care. All he cared was for Bhishma, for his followers, for his devotees, and they were happy. Sometimes we as parents do that.
mm,
Parents are selfless. That's what the biggest lesson of leadership you get when you're a parent. So when you see this example, it's so amazing. It amazed me that he knew it's going to be on the books forever, but he's ready to take that because he's selfless. He doesn't think about myself. Everybody should say, "Oh, Krishna, yeah, I'm the best.
mm,
I keep my promises. I am me." No, he says about my people. So he's ready to take some blames, like the famous example of APG would always say that. I think it was about Vikram Sarabhai or something. When the engine failed, when the engine failed, he took the press conference himself. When it flew,
He sent him.
he sent his subordinates, go and have the press conference. Now that is leadership, and it's so important. People may say, "Oh, corporate world में बहुत politics होता है, ऐसा होता है, वैसा होता है, perceptions create करने होते हैं, वैसा होता है." वो sustainable नहीं है. It's not sustainable. So if you really want to have sustainable success, there you will see, and these leaders have existed. There are still. I'm not saying that there are not such leaders available. There are such leaders still in the corporate world. So that brings me to the third point connected to the story, is people have started to leave from that competence model. So leader not only is competent, even his people must be competent, but it's a combination of character and competence which is required. So from a single C model to a 2C model is very important. So not just the character, but sometimes there's always a conflict. अरे business ये हो रहा है, ये लोगों का क्या करना है? It's always because this leader is very emotional. He has very good connect with people, but he has to also understand that there is character, but there's also competence, and that also needs to be seen in the people. You can't be very emotional because otherwise you're doing disservice to other people. So you need to also understand that. Sometimes there could be certain decisions you might have to take, to get the wrong people off the bus. You might have to do that. Like so the character and the competence, both, not just in the people subordinate, but also in the leader, is extremely important to have. If you're just having a leader who's very competent and lacks character, lacks integrity, he does more harm actually to the organization than a guy who with good character and maybe a little bit less competence. So that also needs to be, of course, taken into consideration.
True, and there are times when we have top performers in the organization who have high competence, but are very low in terms of the character element that you mentioned. Who are actually impacting the overall culture of the organization. Now, I have also seen leaders who have that conflict inside कि ये बंदा ही सब कुछ ड्राइव कर रहा है, अगर मैं इसको ही अपनी टीम से निकाल दूंगा, there's a sense of insecurity also, right? Because when I go to my higher management, I am reflecting the performance of my team, which is heavily on the shoulders of these one or two people. but they are the people who are actually not high on character, just high on competence. So there is a conflict inside me also that, मैं करूं तो करूं क्या? If I let them go, if I actually take them on the character and move them out of the organization, the performance will get impacted big time. What are your thoughts on this kind of a conflict? That runs in leaders' mind.
It's a troublesome situation. So you need to have that right balance. Even if they're there, they're not going to keep with you for forever. They're not going to be with you forever. So eventually they will leave. As soon as they get any opportunity, they're going to leave. But what they're going to before leaving, what they're going to do is they're going to actually spoil the culture of your organization. Because competence you can still build up with people through skill sets. You can train them. Character, integrity, it's either is there, it's not there. You can't really, attitude can't be really taught. I've seen people, there's this recently article I read about, the performers normally they bully people quite a bit. And they get away with it within the organization because the leader is not strong enough, because leader himself is insecure. क्या होगा मेरे business का?
Correct.
तो जूनियर बंदे परेशान क्योंकि एक दो तीन कॉम्पिटेंट लोग हैं या इनकॉम्पिटेंट है, वो दोनों टाइप के लोग होते हैं. One who is a yes man, incompetent, he also bullies, and there's a competent guy who still bullies. So, but the leader has to be very strong. That's what I said. The vision of the leader. The vision of the leader is extremely important. How is he envisioning his whole team? It might need restructuring. It might need certain change. It might need a time when he needs to kind of take control. Most of the time, I think it's because of the insecurities in the leader himself. That's what kind of allows these people. You act like a child. When he sees there's a conflict between his parents, he takes advantage of that. वो झूठ बोलता है. Mother scolds. Father says, "Hey, chalta, chalta," and he understands. Oh, there's a conflict. Kids are smart. I'm telling you, they're much more smart than what we think they are. So he starts taking advantage of that. If both the parents have the similar voice, he says, "Oh, okay, I understand. You guys have unity. Your vision is one. You're driving one thing. Now the leader has one thing, performer is one side, the other team is other side." So this is all the analogy that is given. There's some people who are sitting on the banks of a river, on the banks of a pond. So on the bank of the pond, they pick up these pebbles and they start throwing into the pond. Every pebble that goes into the pond, it creates ripples, right? And if the pebbles fall at different places, what will happen? The ripples will have a destructive interference and they will die down soon. Now, if the pebbles are at one center only, the ripples will
form waves.
Will have what we call the constructive interference. They will form waves which will sustain for a much longer period. So it's very important for the leader to have that kind of a vision. And these are all interlinked. The accountability, what we talked about, being responsible, being people-centric, amplifying his own inner value system. What are his own drivers in life? So when you put them all together, that's how he will create a vision. Because in his vision, people will be first. He will be the last. But today it's a little different. They have their own vision. I, CEO, chairman, MD, that's how it is. That's why they're not able to build up trust. There's always a lack of trust between he and his subordinates.
So you think it's leaders' responsibility to also ensure that he is aware of his team's individual visions. It's his responsibility that the individual team members are aware of the common vision of the organization, and it's his responsibility to bring in that alignment between the individual visions and the organizational vision is when the team will move forward towards that common purpose, because their purpose is also getting served while the organizational purpose is getting served. And that understanding of competence towards achieving those individual visions and organizational vision their character to support that individual and organizational vision is what a leader should be aware of for himself, because as you rightly said, it could be sometimes our own insecurities that are driving things this way. If I am aware of my insecurities, if I am more empowered as a person, I will be able to lead better, and I will see a different perspective, a different persona of the same people who till yesterday were very different to me, because my reality was different, so I could see differently. So I'll have to be aware of my own insecurities, my own being, and what changes I need to bring about in my way of competence and character, and also of my people, so that I can move them towards the common vision, the common purpose.
Yeah,
Is that the
absolutely.
message you would like to give?
Absolutely. Like Dhritarashtra, Kauravas, Pandavas. He was ready to even wipe out Pandavas. They were kids, they were boys. He was ready to wipe them off just to bring his people, bring his son, bring his, which was arising out of his own insecurity of maybe little he was blind, but he didn't get kingdom first. So his all insecurities led to such a thing that his inner voice was completely gone.
Absolutely.
He was ready to kill the kids, his own kids, like practically his own children. He was ready to wipe them off. It's a very important aspect of leadership, actually.
It is. It is. And earlier you mentioned something interesting, which I know did not highlight, was the power of association that you mentioned. So that also becomes very important. Of who are you listening to, who are you trusting, and who are you looking to go for advice to in your personal
And
and professional life. That's
association is
very
not just about people. It's not just people. It's the books.
hmm.
It's what you hear, what you see. It's
What are
so
you
many.
getting influenced by?
Yeah, yeah. Like we are talking, some people are watching. They're associating. They're actually taking it. So where you get your theme, where you get your script of your life, is from your books, from the movies you watch, for example. They have an effect. You may see, oh, I forgot it. 3 घंटा अंदर theater में. That's all time pass. Time. There's nothing called time pass.
Hmm.
Subconscious mind में सब बैठता है वो, सब बैठता है. So it's very important. We get our script from there. So we have to be very careful what we associate with. Association is very, very powerful. Very powerful too. You are an average of 5 people, they say, right?
Hmm.
Of whom you associate with the most. So yeah.
True. उस संगत का असर बोलते थे ना हमेशा बचपन में भी, कि उस संगत में मत रहो, इस संगत में मत रहो. एंड ऑफ द डे इट्स नॉट अबाउट पीपल. यू सेड इट वेरी ब्यूटीफुली दैट इट्स नॉट अबाउट पीपल. इट हैज नथिंग टू डू विद पीपल. It's about the influence that getting created on you. It could be people, it could be books, it could be your environment or what's happening around, whatever you're getting exposed to. So what you're telling us is that be aware of what is influencing you, and be aware of what are you getting exposed to and how is it influencing you. Where you might think the time pass hai, but there is nothing called as time pass. Everything that's happening that you're getting exposed to is having some kind of influence, consciously or subconsciously.
True.
True. And as leaders, it becomes even more important, because you're not responsible just for yourself. You're responsible for your people. So you have to be highly self aware of the association that you are in, what is influencing you, who is influencing you, in what way, is what will reflect on those people who are reporting out to you. And as you grow as a leader at a front line, you might have an effect on 10 people, and those 10 probably on another 10. But as you grow higher, the influence also becomes exponential in nature. Your one set of influence, your one thought process is a direction being set for that function or that organization, and it can take a new course altogether in terms of the way they think and they align.
Yeah.
So, power of association is something that I think all of us as people, as leaders, should get aware of, for our own personal growth and for our people as well. So,
Without a
thank you for
doubt.
bringing that up. Become very, very, very powerfully said. That it's not just about people; it's about everything that is influencing you, and everything is influencing you. You accept it or not. Very powerful. In with respect to conflicts, anything else that's coming into your mind, which you would like to share? Anything that you can think of?
I think this should be sufficient.
Good, good. I'm glad. Since we're speaking about bending rules, I'm sure in our lives there are a lot of times, knowingly, unknowingly, we bend a certain rules. Okay, so my next segment talks about bending rules a little. So I have named it "Have You Ever?" So I'll talk about certain situations and mostly around bending rules. So tell me if it happened, and if it happened, what exactly happened then. All right, are you ready for it, Vikram? Yes.
Sure. Excited.
Okay, great. So Vikram, have you ever stolen money from your parents or your siblings?
Yes.
All right. Do you remember
From the
when it
piggy bank.
happened? Why it happened?
From the piggy bank of my brother, I took I think 2 rupees, and I went to school that day and had gulab jamun. I loved gulab jamun, and there was this one sweet shop in front of my school. And actually, it was my mother who instigated me. We had some tiff, and she scolded me for something, and I got angry. I took 2 rupees and went to the sweet shop and had the gulab jamun. I don't know how many of them. 2 rupees was a big thing those days.
Yeah.
I'm talking of like 1987 or something.
Wow. So you must have had a lot of love jamuns that day. So this idea of bending rules has probably been a part of you for a very, very long time.
Yeah, of course. And the lesson I got from there, I was reflecting on. I was just reflecting on that, and I felt like, yeah, today when I teach my kids about the importance of saving, I think that's something, and the impulsive behaviors we have,
Hmm.
So that was a lesson for me that, yeah, I'm still struggling with it, but yeah, it's better.
Great. Have you ever told a lie because you thought it would result in greater good, but it did not turn that way?
Yeah, to my clients, many times I might have to speak something. The material has already left, sir. Don't worry. So I just wanted to keep him. But the thing was that actually it hadn't left. But by the time, because I did not understand or anticipate the seriousness at his end,
Hmm.
you know, uh, it actually didn't do good for not just for him or for his organization, even for me and my organization as well. Uh, and I realized that actually open communication always helps. I think being truthful is especially in business dealings, it's always very very helpful, and it builds trust, it builds confidence. It's very important. Otherwise, the foundation of any business, which is trust, is actually lost. So I think better, even if it's a bad news, tell it on time, so that he has the time to take think about plan B. If you tell him
Hmm.
at the 11th hour that no, something is messed up, and
Hmm.
anyway, so there's no point. Yeah, that's one example.
True. That's interesting. And even in terms of leadership and dealing with your people, a lot of times we do not share what is happening really and honestly in an organization or the business environment, thinking that we are protecting our people, but we probably are not protecting them, because when it comes time to share that news, we are sharing it at the end hour, where we are probably sharing about a layoff or a salary cut down, and which is not a great news to get, because he or she did not get enough time to plan. If we had informed them on time, they would have probably thought about, how will I manage if it happens. So at least the plan B would have been ready in some ways. So that's a very valid point that you bring forward, Vikram. Have you ever read a book, or done something where you left it halfway? You figured it's not worth reading the book further, or it's not worth doing the task further. Initially, you felt very excited about it.
I have a different example, if you
Okay.
permit me
Yes,
to share.
please, please.
uh, I read a book halfway, I stopped, and then I started it again.
Okay.
Nothing comes to my mind where I kind of left the book either, but there's one book that was Bhagavad Gita. I read half, and then I realized it was very deep. Then I stopped, then I started again, and
Hmm.
that's where I read it full. It was so exciting for me, and the biggest life lesson for me personally, in that matter, was that U-turns are okay in life.
Wow.
It's okay to have a U-turn. Don't worry. Sometimes people get, मैं वही काम कर रहा हूँ जो मैं 10 साल पहले कर रहा था.
अरे कर रहा था.
Leaders, हमको कुछ नया चाहिए, नया challenge दो. Always new, always new. It's okay. It's okay to take a U-turn.
Hmm.
My learning has been fabulous. New meanings were revealed actually.
Excellent.
So it's all our mindset. Sometimes we feel हम वही काम कर रहे हैं, नहीं, आप उस काम को आप और अच्छे से कर सकते हैं और परफेक्ट कुछ नया कर सकते हैं. It's up to you. It's up to me.
Hmm.
So U-turns in life are okay, and
Wow.
leaders are those people who don't mind U-turns.
Very, very powerful lesson that, taking U-turns is all right. Instead of worrying about what am I doing right now, I'm doing the same thing for a very long time. It's sometimes all right to do that, and that self-reflection is very important. I think for you to get that awareness. That's a very powerful lesson, Vikram. Vikram, have you ever shared a secret with someone? You told something to someone with a lot of confidence, लेकिन बाद में you realize that it's not a secret anymore. You probably get to hear it from somebody else, and you're like, oh my god, this is what I shared as secret, and ये मुझे ही बोल रहा है किसी को मत बताना. मैंने तो ये बात बताई थी किसी को.
A couple of examples. I think once in a while somebody was joining, and I told to one guy, and I said, such and such person will be joining. There'll be an announcement next week. Don't tell this to anybody. Well, I'm not sure whether he told to others, but then somebody called me and said, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. Don't tell this to anybody. Such and such person is joining us next week. I said, who told you? He said, forget that. Don't ask me, but keep it with you. And then one more guy called me. He said, I have a secret. I heard such and such guy is joining us, but don't tell this to anybody. And then I realized, oh my God. And maybe one learning for me was that sometimes I may think I'm the only one who knows it.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so, it's already there. Like that. Yeah.
True, true. And a lot of times, even as leaders, there are times when we feel that, this certain competence, this certain way of being, this certain way of leading is something that is unique to me. Let me keep it to myself. Let me not share it with anyone. Otherwise, जो मेरे को अभी importance मिल रही है शायद वो आगे नहीं मिलेगी. In truth, it's nonsense, right? It will only grow. It will only get better if you actually share. If you Because you will realize there is so much that you will pick up, and you will realize what is missing actually, where you were thinking okay, I'm there, you will realize I'm here and there are steps to climb, because you will get exposed to that, right? So that's another powerful lesson, Vikram, that you brought out. So lot of learnings for our audience today. I'm sure there is so much that you picked up. If there is, if you're listening to it right now, if you joined somewhere halfway through, I would request you to please go back right from the beginning, because very powerful lessons that were brought out about leadership today. Very simple lessons, and I would say very deep lessons that you need to reflect on, that you need to think about. Like how Vikram said, you need to take a U-turn. So probably right now, if you're watching this, once this broadcast ends, it's time for you to take a U-turn and see it from the beginning to get more out of it, because what was shared today was powerful. It was deep. It wasn't simple that you can just pick up and go and implement. It wasn't like that. So I request you to do that. And Vikram, thank you so much for bringing so much amazing lessons, such real, honest conversations about leadership, about life overall here. So one thing that I would request you, before we end today's conversation is anything that you would like to tell our leaders, as a last thought to end today's show, that this is what I would want you to take away for sure. This one thing.
I think I would just say, just take care of your people, and they will take care of the business. I think you don't have to worry. Just take care of the people. Set a good example, and success will follow.
Wow. Very well.
It's
Yeah.
simple for the simple. Leadership is simple for the simple and complex for the complex. One day, once I was reading Indra Nui, the ex Pepsi
Hmm.
leader, and she said one of his biggest strengths in life has been to make very complex looking things very simple.
Hmm.
So leaders also have that ability. The real leaders, they have complex situations, they make it very simple. So leadership is actually a very complex subject matter, but they make it very simple. They define it very simply for themselves. And one of the best ways of doing that is actually saying, I'm going to take care of the people. Like Richard Branson says, you just take care of the people and they will take care of the business.
Wow, wow, wow. Wonderful. So, guys, take care of your people and your people will take care of the business. Such a simple thing that we have overcomplicated. So just understand that, try to reflect on it. I know it sounds simple, I know it's not easy to just accept it and implement it immediately, but we can at least make a promise that we will reflect on it, we'll think about it, and see how we can uncomplicate things for ourselves, we can uncomplicate things for our people, we can uncomplicate things for our organization. So, on that note, thank you so much, Vikram, for being here today. I'm so glad you gave us your time. There is so much that we learned. Thanks a lot.
It was an honor. Thank you, Prashant, for this initiative, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for being here. Everyone who's watching it live and everyone who will watch it in recording. Thank you for your support. I'm sure you're getting a lot of value. And I request you to please put in your comments if there is something you want to see, if there's something you want us to talk about, something that you feel will add more value to leadership and get in more insights. I'm more than happy to get your support through your comments, through your messages to me to make things better. So thank you so much once again. Have a great day. Have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you next Saturday at 11 a.m. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
दिलों में तुम अपनी बेताबियां लेके चल रहे हो तो जिंदा हो। नजर में ख्वाबों की बिजलियां लेके चल रहे हो तो जिंदा हो। हवा के झोंकों के जैसे आजाद रहना सीखो, तुम एक दरिया के जैसे लहरों में बहना सीखो। हर एक लम्हे से तुम मिलो, खोले अपनी बाहें, हर एक पल एक नया समा देखिए। जो अपनी आंखों में हैरानियां लेके चल रहे हो तो जिंदा हो। दिलों में तुम अपनी बेताबियां लेके